Nina felt a bit reluctant when Lee mentioned that his mother would come to take care of the child. However, she didn't want to refuse directly. The situation in Lee's family was both complicated and simple. After his father passed away some years ago, his mother remarried an elderly man who used to work at the grain bureau when he was young. After the old man's wife passed away, and with no one to take care of him, Lee's mother was introduced to him. In Nina's eyes, regardless of age, once a woman entered someone else's home, she became part of that family. Due to various concerns, the relationship between Lee and his mother wasn't very close, at least not in Nina's perception. They didn't visit each other during festivals, and their interactions were limited. Lee, being in his second marriage, didn't have the traditional mother-in-law involvement, much to Nina's satisfaction. She appreciated the absence of mother-in-law conflicts. Besides, Lee was a genuinely good man who treated his wife with utmost care and love. Nina recalled a time when they first started dating, and even in the chilly winter, Lee made sure the room was warm before they entered. It was these small gestures that mattered to her more than material possessions. Lee's patience and attentiveness compensated for the fact that he was older and had experienced a previous marriage. Lee rarely mentioned his previous marriage, only stating that his family wasn't that great and couldn't keep people. Nina, not bothered by the past, focused on the fact that she found a good man. Lee, unexpectedly, admitted that he had mentally prepared himself to remain unmarried for the rest of his life and never expected to meet someone like Nina. Their relationship flourished quickly, and within 6 months of knowing each other, Nina became pregnant. They smoothly proceeded to get married and welcomed their child into the world. Nina couldn't refuse when her mother-in-law decided to visit, so she quickly prepared the guest room early in the morning. Lee went to pick up his mother the day before, and by the next evening, they arrived at Nina's home. It was the first time Nina met her mother-in-law. The elderly lady had well-defined eyebrows and eye makeup, with small curls in her hair. She wore a bright red robe, green pants, shiny little leather shoes, and a leopard print scarf. Nina couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she felt an unexplainable discomfort and a subtle hostility towards her mother-in-law. It wasn't intentional, it seemed more like an instinctive self-defense mechanism. After dinner, Nina took the child to the bedroom to sleep and instructed Lee to wash and tidy up the baby's clothes and mop the living room floor. They didn't have clear responsibilities for household chores before, just whoever noticed something needed to be done did it. Lee, considering himself a man, felt he should take on more household chores. Their good relationship meant they didn't fuss over such matters. The next morning, Nina found the living room and kitchen still in a mess, just like the previous day. Lee and his mother were sitting at the dining table having congee, completely ignoring her. Nina's heart sank. It seemed the old lady had come with unfriendly intentions, giving her a show of authority right from the first meeting. The real challenges started unfolding later. For instance, when washing clothes, the elderly lady would stuff her hot underwear directly into the washing machine. She also washed her hair in the kitchen sink, claiming the water there heated up faster. One day, Nina was horrified to find her mother-in-law sitting on the sofa, barefoot, trimming her toenails. Ignoring the nail clippings scattered around, she carried on without cleaning up. Another time, Nina was putting the child to sleep and, upon exiting the bedroom, was startled to find the mother-in-law drinking water in the living room with a towel wrapped around her head, as if she were in her own home. To make matters worse, Lee sat in the living room watching TV as if such scenes were commonplace. Nina quickly closed the door, muttering an exclamation. The vivid image of her mother-in-law lingered in her mind like a slideshow. She felt a sense of discomfort. She messaged Lee, asking if he could get his mother dressed properly. Through the closed door, she heard Lee telling his mother to put on clothes before coming out. One day, when Lee didn't come home from work, the mother-in-law was in the kitchen cooking. She complained about not being used to city people's pans, claiming they were cancerous. So, she brought an iron pot from her hometown. Nina, discovering rust at the bottom the next day, insisted on washing it before use. The mother-in-law dismissed the need to wash it, saying she had used iron pots for most of her life, they weren't poisonous, and besides, a bit of rust could be good for health. Nina, feeling upset, skipped dinner that day, and her face didn't look good. When she thought of complaining to Lee, she regretted not capturing the absurdity on video. It was an unproven claim, and even if she spoke, Lee might not believe her. That night, when Lee returned home, before Nina could complain, he preemptively asked her if she had disrespected his mother. Nina was nursing the baby at that moment, and the anger surged instantly. She wanted to stand up and express her frustration, but then she thought about the small child still feeding. Suppressing the anger, she felt a suffocating and unpleasant sensation, like cramming a big dried horse dung into a tiny crack in the wall. After that incident, Nina tried to avoid direct contact with her mother-in-law as much as possible. If she could avoid speaking, she chose silence, knowing that she and the old lady were not on the same page. Nina could only hope that the old lady would leave soon. Whether she was unfilial or lacked manners, Nina could tolerate it as long as she left. The various frictions, though seemingly insignificant, were adding up, and Nina didn't want to indulge her. Being an elderly person didn't change the fact that she wasn't Nina's parent or caregiver. The addition of an unfamiliar, emotionally unconnected, and somewhat unreliable person disrupted their established way of life and habits. The most affected aspect was Nina's relationship with Lee. They used to be very close, especially before having a child. Even after the baby was born, despite the fatigue of childcare, they always managed to find a bit of time for themselves, doing intimate things that couples do. Lee even installed a surveillance camera at home to monitor Nina's mood. If he noticed she was upset, he would promptly console her, bringing home something delicious or entertaining. Now, however, the surveillance seemed to be used to check if Nina was disrespecting his mother and causing trouble. In the past, when the baby slept, Nina and Lee would enjoy some private time together, sometimes engaging in activities not suitable for children. They might have disagreements, but after a little argument and some affectionate moments, everything would be fine again. A couple with both physical and emotional intimacy usually had no insurmountable issues. But now, everything was different. Since the mother-in-law arrived, Lee transformed into a different person. He wouldn't respond even if called, and he seemed to have selective hearing. When Nina called him, he wouldn't even raise an eyebrow, but if his mother spoke to him in a hushed tone, he would listen attentively. For instance, Nina expressed her desire to eat the fish he used to cook, and the mother-in-law commented, saying he didn't know anything before and only learned to cook fish because of Nina. It was a simple and common statement, but after the mother-in-law's comment, it felt as if Nina was bullying Lee. Lee, perhaps not wanting to lose face in front of his mother, refused to cook. When Nina asked him to do simple tasks like preparing a baby bottle or washing socks, the mother-in-law interjected, saying he couldn't do everything, and men shouldn't be bothered with these household chores. Lee, in turn, just sat there without moving. As for their intimacy, with the growing rift, Lee didn't take the initiative, and Nina didn't feel like doing so either. The situation became a power struggle of who would take the initiative and compromise first. Resentment accumulates over time and will eventually erupt. In detailed interactions, the old lady also discovered that Nina wasn't a daughter-in-law who would silently endure grievances. She was not as easy to control as she initially thought. The tension between them became evident in both subtle and overt polite gestures. Nina, trying to get information indirectly, asked Lee, "When is your mom planning to leave? Let's buy something for her in advance." Lee just mumbled and didn't seem concerned. He claimed it wasn't urgent and that the matter wasn't settled yet. Nina couldn't help but wonder if the retired old man had passed away. Otherwise, how could the old lady, who attended to him personally, stay away for so long? If the mother-in-law didn't plan to leave and intended to stay for the rest of her life, Nina's good days would be over. Lee couldn't be unaware of this, but he chose not to share, making it clear that they weren't on the same side. With a woman's pent-up emotions, actions often reflect the lack of control. One day, while cooking, there was water in the pot, but when Nina poured the meat in, a huge flame erupted, splattering hot oil on her arm. Lee came in to assess the situation, but Nina, upset, didn't respond to him. She threw the spatula into the pot and walked away, nursing her burnt arm. Lee, seeing her displeased, commented, "You burned yourself, why are you angry at me? Did I burn you?" He mentioned her sulking during the day, saying he had tolerated it without arguing, and she still looked upset. Nina retorted, "Even if there's a dog in the house, it knows to bring some burn ointment when its owner burns their hand. Unlike you, eager to argue with your owner." Lee responded, "Who are you calling a dog?" Nina, applying ointment to her arm, said, "I didn't call you a dog. I meant you're even worse than a dog." The dinner was consumed in an atmosphere full of tension. After the meal, Nina mentioned her injured hand and asked Lee to wash the dishes. Lee agreed, telling her to rest. The mother-in-law, holding the child, made a prolonged "oh," remarking, "Getting a blister is an accomplishment. If you don't want to wash now, leave it for tomorrow." Nina retorted, "Who are you OING at? This is my home, who do you think you are?" She stood up and raised her voice, "I want to talk about you. I've endured you for a long time. You claim to come here to help with the child, but what have you done? You won't even change a diaper. You say you have a weak stomach and can't stand the smell, but you serve the old man, cleaning up after him without any complaints. Did you serve him using a rusty iron pot for cooking? Lee tried to stop Nina, but she resisted. When he attempted to approach, Nina shoved him away. The argument escalated, and in the heat of the moment, Nina didn't remember the specifics but recalled feeling a surge of anger, temporarily abandoning wisdom and morality. She had physical strength, and while Lee was tall, he was thin, making them evenly matched. The mother-in-law tried to intervene, tightly holding on to Nina. In a flash, Nina felt a crisp slap on her left cheek. The child, frightened by the commotion, started crying. Despite her anger, Nina, being a mother, couldn't bear to see her child cry. She softened, saying, all right, let's stop here. Don't scare the child. However, Lee, having gotten the upper hand, continued to provoke. Nina, losing patience, grabbed a red wine bottle from the dining table and smashed it onto Lee's head. With a loud bang, Lee's body swayed, blood flowing from his head. The old lady screamed wildly, trying to cover his wound with her hands. Unable to stop the bleeding, blood oozed through the old lady's fingers, and Lee's hair became matted with blood. Nina, feeling guilty, quickly called an ambulance. Fortunately, there was no life-threatening danger. Lee's head was bandaged, and he spent half a month in the hospital. Nina, being the culprit, had to take care of him throughout. After busy days with the child, she prepared meals at home and brought them to the hospital, feeding Lee and giving him water, even peeling fruits for him. Fellow patients in the hospital room asked Lee what happened to his head. Nina casually explained that they were cleaning the chandelier at home, and it fell, hitting him on the head. The other patients sympathized, saying that it sounded serious. Nina added, yes, a mild concussion. If it had been heavier, his brain would be damaged. If it hit the brainstem, he could have been paralyzed. She babbled on, but her expression was solemn, and her gaze sincere, making others believe her. Lee, keeping quiet, dared not utter a word. While Nina cared for Lee, the mother-in-law took care of household matters at home. Everything was spotless, from shining pots to the child's well-wiped bottom. One evening, when Nina was at the hospital with Lee, he fell asleep. Nina saw a message from the mother-in-law on Lee's phone. Son, keep your mouth shut and don't say anything. I've seen through your wife. She's like the dog in our village that bites without barking. The old lady initially sent voice messages but later learned to type as it was more convenient and wouldn't be overheard. Nina was amused and exasperated. As she put down Lee's phone, she received a WeChat voice message from the mother-in-law on her own phone. Nina, don't come home that night. It's not safe in the dark. I'll look after the child, so don't worry. The child has been weaned, but the mother-in-law shows no intention of leaving. When Nina asked Lee, he could only tell the truth. The old lady follows that old man around, without any status, basically a free babysitter. The old man's children are wary of this stepmother, fearing she might take something from their family. The old man controls his pension card, providing only a small amount for groceries each month. They had a dispute because the old man saw the old lady taking a spoonful of his bird's nest soup. Feeling wronged, the old lady said, I just wanted to taste it. Do you think I'm taking advantage of you? The old man argued, you're living in my house, eating, and staying for free. Isn't that money? The argument escalated, and their children were not happy. The old man is now considered a wealthy retiree, the kind who gets money without working. Would you want to upset him? In frustration, the old lady initially thought of not going back, assuming the old man would come looking for her. However, he just hired another live-in housekeeper who gets paid. Really not a good person, Nina criticized. After expressing her disapproval, she asked Lee, so, what does your mom mean? Doesn't she want to go back and assert herself? Lee replied, forget it, my mom is taking care of the child now, and she doesn't have many thoughts about it. Nina thought that the old lady was initially assertive, probably trying to establish authority in front of her daughter-in-law. However, as time passed, she softened, perhaps realizing she had no way out, or maybe she was intimidated by Nina's actions. Regardless of the reason, if the mother-in-law can focus on taking care of the child, it's a good thing. With the child weaned, Nina can also go back to work and earn money. During the Chinese New Year, Nina took her child back to her hometown with her mother-in-law. There was a relative's wedding, and they all went to attend the banquet. As they mingled with unfamiliar relatives and friends, Nina felt uneasy. She excused herself, went to the restroom to relax, and spent some time on her phone. When she came out, a middle-aged woman kept staring at her. Feeling uncomfortable under the woman's gaze, she took the initiative to ask, "Is Lee treating you well?" Nina replied, "Quite well." The woman continued, "How did you two meet?" Nina explained that they met through work. The woman looked at Nina and, after shaking off water from her hands, approached again. She asked, "He doesn't hit you, does he? Do you know why he got divorced?" Nina felt uneasy hearing this on such a joyous occasion, suspecting that the woman had been keeping an eye on her and deliberately came to make trouble in the restroom. Seeing Nina's uncomfortable expression, the woman said, "Don't be mad at me for being nosy. I just want to tell you. Lee's ex-wife was chased away by him. She was from another town and was beaten up frequently. Your mother-in-law is also not a good person. She scolded the poor girl for being pregnant without marriage. After giving birth to a girl, she complained every day. If the villagers hadn't found out early, the poor girl might have drowned herself and the child in the river. What happened next? That poor girl left with the child and never came back. People in nearby villages all know about it. They say Lee will stay single forever. No one dares to marry a girl into his family. You're a young girl. Well, I shouldn't say more." The woman shook her head and left. Nina recalled that many people had been looking at her strangely today. Initially, she thought it was because she didn't hold a wedding ceremony. Based on the woman's description, others probably assumed she was marrying a man who had a history of domestic violence, a discarded husband from someone else. Remembering Lee's furious punches that day, Nina shivered and was thankful that she wasn't someone who tolerates domestic violence. If she hadn't taken up a bottle to stop Lee, it might have opened the door to more violent behavior. When a woman is hurt, she typically has two reactions: endure and continue, or fight back and move on. Regardless of the choice, it sets a clear boundary. Nina was different. She could face the situation fearlessly, fight when necessary, and still take care of things afterwards. She played the card of being unpredictable, making both the man and the mother-in-law uncertain and hesitant to act recklessly. In the relationships between spouses and mothers-in-law, mutual respect and compromise are essential for long-term harmony. Living a life entangled with bad people didn't frighten Nina. At least now, she had a man who cared for the family and a mother-in-law who devoted herself without an escape route. Looking at it this way, she was the one benefiting, but she couldn't help feeling sorry for Lee's unfortunate ex-wife. When facing difficulties, pray to Buddha. When facing thieves, grab a gun. Move forward. That's what Nina thought.